Okay.
So Alicia, is that me?
It's you. And Dante,
Okay.
if you want, I can pull
No,
up
I
the
got you.
deck.
Oh yeah, you can pull up the deck. So first I'd like to welcome everyone to the Work-Based Learning Subcommittee of the Connecticut Career Pathways Commission. This is a public meeting and it will be or is being recorded. So let's see, the agenda will be coming up. Okay, so we're going to take about 10 minutes to do some intros. I know we had an opportunity to do a little bit of that at the larger meeting, but we think it's good to do that with those of us who are going to be working closely together. We're then going to the norms that were presented by Miguel at the first meeting. We will define what work-based learning is, at least is to this group and to this commission. And then we will have the next part will be our overview of our work plan, and we'll spend a good chunk of time, about 25 minutes, on what we need to do for data collection. Everybody hopefully will give some input and some brainstorming, and then the last 5 minutes will just be kind of what's the next steps. So we do have a roll call, and because again, it's a public meeting, we're making sure that we take attendance. So even though I've seen you, I need you to speak up. Kathy Awad,
Here.
I'm here. Aaron Benham, you are on mute, my friend.
Yes, I'm here.
Christine Carver,
I'm here.
Sharon Merriman,
Here.
Nicole Russo, is she here? No,
Uh,
Nicole.
yeah,
Um,
Nicole was going to try and join, but she wasn't sure she was going to be able to. So
okay.
hopefully she'll join at some point.
Zulma Toro
Here.
and Steve Ware. The rumor is he's coming. Um, so we'll go on to intros. I actually will go by the order of the roll call. So if you could just take a minute to reintroduce yourself in the smaller setting, that would be appreciated. Kathy Awad.
Thank you, Kathy Awad. I apologize for having my camera off. I've snuck into a little room here at the U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting to join you this morning. I am out here, been on the U.S. Conference of Mayors Workforce Development Council for about 12 years now. It's a great group, but I am very pleased to have the opportunity to participate on this group representing the workforce boards, and I'm looking forward to the work that we're going to do. So thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. I'm Dante Bartolomeo. I am currently the commissioner for the Department of Labor. I spent 4 years in the state Senate and then went on Governor Lamont's campaign and have been at the Department of Labor for 7.5 years. The last 5 of which have been as the commissioner. Prior to that was a deputy commissioner. Our agency has an enormous variety of units and departments. Most relevant to this is our workforce side of the house, if you will. We have the WIOA administration unit, we have the registered apprenticeship unit, as well as the Jobs First Employment Services, which is kind of known as the old welfare to work. So our agency is very involved in work-based learning, different types of work-based learning. Erin?
Hi, everyone. I'm Erin Benham. I am the Vice Chair of the State Board of Education. I have served on the boards for 12 years now. I'm a lifelong educator. I served 39 years in Meriden Public Schools and left there in 2019. A lot of our work that we do on the state board has to do with workforce. Many different districts have these things in place. So I'm really looking forward to bringing this all together to move it forward for all of our students in the state of Connecticut.
Great. Christine.
Trying to find my mute. When you flip between different platforms, it's difficult. I've been on Teams, Zoom, and Google Meet today. Christine Carver. I am the superintendent currently of Bethel Public Schools. I've been the superintendent here in Bethel for 12 years. Have a variety of urban, suburban experience. I was assistant superintendent in New London, Newington, but been in Bethel quite a while, where we have developed pathway programs. I am retiring in June, and as superintendent, and I'm going to be working with CAPS. That's working on a concurrent project. I think you're probably all aware, and representing CAPS on the development of a statewide framework and pathways, and all of the work that the commission's going to be doing aligned to that.
Well, thank you. So we won't be losing you. That's good. Shannon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Shannon Mariamone. I'm Executive Director of Ready CT. We are the Education and Workforce affiliate of the Connecticut Business and Industry Association, CBIA. And we are focused on career-connected learning all day, every day, with a focus on our highest need school districts. So our main partners tend to be the Alliance districts. And we do both very in-depth programming where we're embedded in schools, actually implementing and leading career pathways work and all the work-based learning that goes with it, as well as higher touch work or lighter touch work that's more exposure and awareness related at a statewide level, doing a focus on high growth, high demand industry programs that just get kids kind of that initial connection to where those opportunities are. We serve approximately 10,000 students a year currently, and we're continuing to build new partnerships, very employer-driven partnerships, where the employer is sort of kind of identifying their needs and informing a lot of the design of the program so that it can be really connected to the opportunities they have for early career workforce. So really excited to be part of this group. Prior to this, I was at the Connecticut State Department of Education, so worked very closely with Erin and others, and across our K-12 education system. So I feel like I also have a deep connection to all things K-12 and policy related, which has to play a role, I think, in some of the conversations we're having about things that might be enablers of what we want to do or standing in the way of what we want to do. And I'm also chair of the West Hartford Board of Education, so have a perspective as a board member trying to figure out how to do this at a district level. So very excited to be working with this group.
Thank you. It looks like Nicole has not joined. So Zolma.
Good afternoon, everyone. I serve as president of Central Connecticut State University, has been here for 9 years, 5 months. And I am an engineer by education, industrial and systems engineer. And Central is the only institution within our system, the CSCU system, with programs, 4-year programs in engineering and technology. Central is the applied learning institution of the system, if you will. That means that we are on our way to have every student who graduate from Central complete at least 2 experiential learning opportunities at the time of graduation. Experiential learning opportunities include work-based learning. So we have been doing quite a bit of work in this area, not without any without pushback from faculty, but our goal is to connect what is being taught in the classroom to the real world, no matter what discipline the faculty is teaching, no matter what program the students are pursuing. We think, based on the research we have done, that is what we need to be able to help our students deal with the new changes coming from the federal government associated with the big, beautiful bill.
Thank you, Zolma. And I see that Nicole has joined. Are you settled yet enough to give us your 1-minute reintro?
Hi, Dante.
Hi.
Oh boy, that's not a good video. I am just coming off Federal Reserve Bank meeting, so I'm going to go off camera because I'm driving home.
Sure.
But I can, if you could just give me the intro that you'd like me to provide. I missed the
Just
beginning of
1
the
minute
meeting.
on who you are and how you're related to work-based learning.
Okay. Nicole Resso, CEO and owner of Microboard. We're in Seymour. 180 high-tech manufacturing employees. I also am on the CBIA board. I was a leader of the Southwest Manufacturing RSP, and I'm on the Federal Reserve Council for New York, representing Southwest Connecticut. And I'm also the executive chairwoman of the Workplace nonprofit board in the Southwest Connecticut region, as well as they're across the country as well. So plugged in a couple different ways.
Thank you, and thank you for clearly it's not convenient, but we appreciate your being with us as well. I don't believe Representative or Steve Ware has joined us, so we will move on. So the next, if you could put that slide up, we've got a slide just to remind us of kind of the norms that Miguel introduced at the larger commission meeting. Which
We're working on it. We're having a little technical difficulties, so I know Jen's trying to share right now.
So while we were doing that, let me just ask Nicole. Nicole, do you actually have work-based learning experiences in your company?
So we've done some apprentice programs.
Okay.
And I think you probably have to give me a better definition just so I'm answering that correctly. We do almost all of our own in-house training. We work with an organization called IPC, which is an industry standard for electronics. And they do a lot of training for us, both on-site and off-site.
Okay, great. Well, one of our items on the agenda coming up in the future is to have a definition. So we'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
So what Miguel opened with going through some norms. This is something you've probably all seen before. I think everybody here was at that meeting. You know, to the best of our ability, we're supposed to be on time, and would like us to make sure that everybody is really kind of engaged in the conversation, which is one of the things that we have taken down as our norms that we'd like for this subcommittee. We want everybody to feel the opportunity, have the opportunity to give your opinions and also to hear others. Sometimes with all of us being leaders, myself included, it becomes very difficult to not have the chance to get out everything you have to say, but we do have to make sure that we're making space for others. And we're supposed to be able to leave our technology at the door. I don't think I can comply. I apologize for that, but that's tough. So to the extent possible, limit distractions, do our homework before we actually come in. Alicia and Jen are very good about making sure that they're sending things out in advance. Those of us who are kind of the tri-lead of this have been getting lots of homework. And forging new relationships. They would like to make sure that we're working cross-disciplinary, and that we are integrating and creating strong solutions so that we can kind of grow some partnerships here. We are to use our first names, stripes at the door. First names are best for this work. And moving outside of our comfort zone, this is, you know, this is kind of what I just said, that we are to make sure that we have enough communication, cross communication. Everybody has an opportunity to share their thoughts so that we come out of here with solutions that are really going to not just be what has been done status quo, and that we are remembering that this is all about our state of Connecticut as opposed to our individual responsibilities, and that we're bringing our perspective and experience towards solutions that are going to benefit the entire state and future generations. The next slide, number 5, this is what we have, when I say we, myself and Shannon and Kathy Awad have been working on with Alicia and Jen so that we have kind of the norms that we think are appropriate for this particular working group, adding to on top of what Miguel's were. Again, you know, we think it's really important that we have a lot of great programming going on in the state, and before we move towards recommendations and new initiatives as a result of this commission, that we want to make sure that we are inventorying, knowing and understanding and appreciating what's already working really well. And, you know, before we then move into kind of improvement opportunities. I talked a little bit about take space, make space. That is really about, you know, if we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity and that everybody is comfortable sharing. And we want to be able to kind of move beyond through the subcommittee, just the high level concepts, and make sure that we're diving down enough so that we can operationalize whatever deliverables that come out of or suggestions that come out of this group. We want to make sure that there's really no kind of right or wrong solution, that when we choose something, we want to tell our story about the options, because we want to be able to make sure that this group as a committee, as a whole, is able to express if they have upsides, downsides, whatever they think might be, and the trade-offs. And then that we also can, if we're not agreeing with something that's put out there, let's talk about it, debate it, and then get to the point where we can all kind of come to a consensus, so that whatever we're moving forward as a committee is genuinely a committee approved, committee agreed upon consensus before we go to the implementing stage of that. The next slide is just kind of a reminder of the different work streams that the commission is focused on and where we fall in that. So there's the pathways design and governance. There's the career connected education, which is divided then into 2 additional: student access and student supports. Work-based learning, obviously, which is us, but we have a lean towards the employers piece of this, because the student piece is being covered in the other one. And that we also we have a statewide systems work stream that'll be happening as well. And at this point, I am going to pass it off to Shannon.
Great. Any questions, I guess, up to this point? Just to take a pause. Okay. Great. So as one of the co-liaisons with the committee, along with Dante and Kathy, we previewed this deck just to level set, I think, in terms of having a shared understanding of what work-based learning entails. And I think definitionally, there's a lot of different ways to think about work-based learning, but this really offers, this is a really nice slide to see that I'm not sure who we attribute authorship to fully, but thank you, Alicia and Jen, for giving us this, because it really shows that full continuum of work-based learning from that early stage, kind of what I talked to earlier around exposure and awareness opportunities that really just give students a taste of what's out there in the world, and then into more exploration and hands-on experiences, and then career preparation and application of your learning, and seeing how it can be applied in more real-world settings, and then ultimately full development, where you might be doing something like an internship or a pre-apprenticeship, apprenticeship, clinical. So this really tries to capture that full continuum. And then there's also sort of that enablement layer down on the bottom, which is how do you build capacity for the system to offer this as far and wide as possible for students, with a focus at starting the earlier grade levels. I know we're really squarely focused, I think, in like the higher ed secondary level and then into higher ed. But I think we should talk about that a little bit in terms of how to start this work even sooner, possibly in the K-12 space, and then how far do we take it up into the post-secondary space. So this is just a way to come back to this recurringly as a committee, and know what we mean when we say work-based learning. We are focused, as Dante said, on the employer vantage point coming into this, and where does an employer play a role at each stage of this continuum. And we did talk about, do they really, how much of a role do they play at each stage? And so the next slide, so before we move to the next slide where we talk about employer driven activities, is there any reflection or reaction to this overview slide?
Shannon, I like your stress, you're focused on earlier levels. I think that's really important. Interestingly enough, just yesterday at our board meeting, the student, as you probably remember, the Student Council presents every year in June.
Yep.
They presented on math but they connected it very much to that they started realizing that kids, and these were elementary kids, that in order for them to learn math and want to learn math, they had to connect it to a career they wanted. So it was very, and these were, these are high school students that put on this presentation for us. And that was one of the other focus was AI, but it was AI and math. But I thought that was very interesting. And the success they had with the kids improving their math when they compared them to a job that they would want. And these were 4th and 5th graders. So I think that's a real good focus.
Great. So next slide are just a couple of examples of where the employer gets involved in the work-based learning continuum. And so wanted to review this list with the committee and see if you agree with these, and like, again, the timeline or the age range in which this is happening will be, I think, part of a bigger conversation we have. But in terms of the activities, this was a pretty comprehensive list. And we also want to see if anything's missing. Is there anything that should be added to this list? So I won't read them all, but if you guys want to take a minute and look over them and see.
You know what? I think we shouldn't read them, Shannon, because we've got Nicole driving.
Oh, driving? Okay, I will do.
Yeah, but I'm sitting in dead standstill traffic, so I can actually see them.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
oh, don't
okay.
Yeah. Actually, I do have one thought on this. We had tried this, I'll have to say, a little unsuccessfully, but I think it could get successful to put an LCD monitor into this student centers of the high schools that was scrolling information about local companies. We did it with Ansonia High School. And unfortunately, we just couldn't man it, to keep scrolling like 6 or 7 different companies with a QR code in there. So I don't see that specifically on this list, but I think it could have legs if we wanted to try it, where they're seeing our company names more often than just a tour. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Shannon. I was not able to attend the last commission meeting, so I didn't get the context that helped develop this list.
Well, it wasn't created this is
okay.
You are seeing this for the first time with everyone else.
So my question is, it says employer-led activities. So am I to assume that our expectation would be that actually businesses, companies would be like responsible for leading this? Because I find it's really the reverse when you talk about the pre-K-12 sector, that the school has to initiate it. Is our vision that we would like employers to do that? And just as another comment related to most schools have those rotating screens. So that would not be a problem. But is that the intent? Is that the vision for this? That the business themselves would be the initiators of this?
Yeah, if I could jump in there, thank you, Christine. From the perspective of the regional sector partnerships that are driven by employers, this is what the employers are doing with school districts, where the sector partnerships are active and there's a relationship with the K-12 systems. They have put themselves together a speakers bureau so that if a school is looking for a speaker, you could reach out to the RSP and they get you a speaker, that they're open to job shadowing. So yes, that, to your point, it is the intent that they be employer led. And I can tell you that depending on the sector strategies, things like this are actually happening.
Okay, because I've not seen it, and I'm happy to hear it. I'd love to hear more about that because and I think it goes to the larger issue. This is a comment, Christine's comment about the fragmentation that we have.
Yep.
Because I don't know any of my colleagues in my region that are seeing this type of work, and I don't know if it's more of a urban versus suburban thing, but I mean, I'm not saying it's the wrong vision, so let me be clear about that. And I think the list is comprehensive. I just wanted to get clarity around that.
Yeah, and this is Nicole. I can add a little clarity from the Southwest RSP. We had reached out to Emmett O'Brien and Ansonia and the local high schools had a lot of trouble because students didn't have cars, couldn't organize buses to get them all there. So then we kind of had to go our own way to do open houses on Saturdays where the parents would come. And that was really interesting because some of the parents wanted jobs. But it was very fragmented. We weren't able to, for example, take a Saturday and have them tour 4 or 5 manufacturing companies all in the same day, or 4 or 5 hospitals or whatever we want to do. We were kind of doing it one off. And that's why we decided to do the LCD displays to say, okay, let's keep our names forefront with them. But it never got a nice continuum to it. So, and I think Kathy, you guys may be doing it more successfully in another part of the state than we were able to get to.
Yeah, and it really, to be honest with you, its success is driven by the commitment of the employers that are leading it, both in manufacturing, healthcare, and in the architecture, engineering, and construction. We have some pretty dynamic employers that know that these cues that you see here are the key to their talent pipeline, and so they're invested in this.
Yeah. I
Dante?
think I'll just add one more thing. I think that's a really important thing we have to pause on, because I'm going to speak on behalf of the smaller manufacturers that just don't have the HR teams in depth to do that. So we start with best intentions, but we can't keep it up. Speaking for what we did in our region, and is that part of what we have to solve here? Is there a better way to keep it up if we don't have the staff? And we're trying to be intentional. So I'll pause there.
Dante?
Thank you. So, I just kind of, in hearing this, I had a little light bulb moment. So I'm throwing this out without any vetting. So Kathy, for you specifically, so Kathy's got one of the regional workforce boards. There's 5 of them. I don't know who everybody knows what. Montville, Hartford, Waterbury, New Haven, and Bridgeport. The Department of Labor is a primary partner in those, and we have a business engagement unit. And the business engagement unit has folks that are in each one of the American Job Centers. We have other staff in there as well. And so in the last 3 years, while we formulated the specific business engagement unit, what we've been doing is tons and tons and tons of job fairs. We do them for employers that are hiring, and we've actually even done some very, very large ones. We had one at Central. It was Zulma. What was that? Like a little over a year ago, maybe?
Yes, I think it was over a year ago.
Yeah.
It was huge.
We had 70 employers, and we actually had so many attendees. The only downside was that the lines were wrapped out the door of the student center around multiple buildings, and we had only told that it was supposed to go till 1 o'clock. We begged employers to stay till 2. We had to kind of shut off the line. So we can draw a lot of people when it's a hiring event. I actually think we could transition that into having something where employers come, and maybe schools could bring students in, bus students in, or whatever that looks like, to do something aimed at more of like a career exploration, rather than a job fair. We have it as a career fair. That's what we call the jobs, but that's just an idea I'm throwing out there. And Kathy, I don't know if you think that that's a viable thing, but just kind of popped into my head.
It absolutely is, and actually, it has been being done with the Workforce Board in conjunction with the Waterbury Chamber of Commerce. We do it's a STEM fair, and it's actually held on the campus at Naugatuck Valley. The kids tour, they see all the manufacturing employers, they take a tour of the training center there, and it is actually more like a true career fair where employers are explaining their processes. The kids are touring the campus specific to manufacturing, and there's a good outcome. There's an awareness that happens as a result of that.
So
But
can I ask?
I think as a norm, maybe we should set that if you want to raise your hand. I don't know, Nicole, are you able to raise your hand from the?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay, we just have one hand raised, and then
Oh,
I'll
got
come
it.
right to you.
Sorry.
So
Okay.
Alicia, did you have something?
I just, and not to, I don't want to diminish any of this conversation, but I just wanted to clarify for the slide specifically and the point Christine was asking about the employer led, the intention of this, and I wrote this, so I probably should use a different word. It wasn't meant to be who initiated the activity. It was more around employer hosting, I would say. So I think we should talk more about where the employers will lead, whether it's an intermediary that's really going to act in that role. I think that's going to be a really meaty discussion we're going to have over time. But the point of this wasn't really about initiating. It was more like where employers are taking a key
Involvement.
role, just to clarify.
Thank you, Alicia. Nicole?
Do we have metrics here we can start working with? For example, I think it's 12,000 high school students. Like how many actually do the tours? How many actually get jobs? What are we trying to solve for?
Yeah, so you are jumping ahead a couple slides. So we are gonna get to metrics in just a second.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So I think this is a good starting point, and like to Alicia's point, I think it's kind of, although it's very lopsided, I would say, in the state in terms of how employers either lead or get involved with different work-based learning activities. And so I think part of the goal of the commission is to make it more systemic and more consistent so that it's not just happening in these pockets, but it's happening more comprehensively across the state. So we can move on, I guess, to the next slide, which is a focus on our work as a committee. So we will be moving towards this discovery phase, which I'll get into in just a minute in another slide, which is going to be on June 25th, right, is the meeting of the full commission. So we have a little bit of work to do with a heavy assist from Alicia and Jen to get to the discovery meeting at the end of June. And then we have a little.
Do we have times on that? Like, do we have times about that date?
I don't think I know that Chris Rivers said calendar invites were coming soon for all commission meetings. So my hope is that we will see those invites any day now. Alicia, any?
Yeah, yes, I hope we will too.
Okay.
We're working on it. We're trying to nail it
I
down.
agree. I have been beating that drum from the beginning because if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't happen. So yeah, hopefully that soon. The good news is that since our committee is the third of the four pillars, we have a little more time to coalesce around our presentation, which is scheduled for August 27th. And that hopefully that timing will be confirmed as well. And so we will be meeting as a committee throughout the summer with the recognition that people probably have a lot of summer plans and may not be able to make all the meetings. But I know that Alicia and Jen are working on the scheduling of all those committee meetings. Anything else on the work, Alicia or Jen, that you want to contribute? Okay. So the next slide is sort of the project approach that all 5 of the working groups are using to advance this work and be productive in moving the ball forward. We are in this discovery phase, that this is the stage that's going to take us through that June 25th meeting, which will include looking at Connecticut's current state, future state, and the barriers that we might face to get to that future state. A lot of that work is going to be happening behind the scenes by, I think, the SIP team, but with input from the committees along the way. And so today we're going to start a little bit of that conversation, knowing that we won't get through all of it in this first meeting. And then there's going to be the solution stage, and then incentives and feedback loops for making sure that all of this can come together. That will be the final recommendation and report stage, which will come, in the ensuing months. So today, in terms of advancing the discovery phase, we wanted to focus on process and metrics, like Nicole was referencing, to evaluate the current state, including a landscape analysis, identification of bright spots and pockets of excellence, like Miguel likes to say, and an outcomes analysis. And so, like, to Nicole's point about what are some of the outcomes we've seen as metrics already, and then benchmarking to other states, which I think is something the SIP team is definitely going to be doing. I don't think collectively we have a whole lot of capacity to be, as committee members, to be researching all the best models in other states. But Christine, you probably have some examples from the work that CAPS has already been doing, and I believe the SIP team will be doing a lot of that review of what's happening in other states, plus what Miguel is already very familiar with from his tour around the country. So then the first slide that we were going to dive into, oh, is there a question in the comments?
Oh, I put a comment so as not to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Do you want to?
No, it's an editing comment for Alicia and Jen. I just want to make sure we're aligned with CTDOL and USDOL terms and that we have registered apprenticeship programs, RAPs, and certified pre-apprenticeship programs. I just noticed it on that other slide and I had forgotten to tell you before.
Some of it was just to save space on the slide, but we will change it.
Yeah, sorry. I tried not to interrupt.
Okay. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Jen, who's going to lead us through an exercise around our work-based learning metric brainstorm.
Yes, thank you, Shannon. Can everyone hear me? Just to confirm,
Yes.
I'm sharing, and yes, so thank you. And Nicole will pay you later for teeing up the discussion about metrics and data. So you'll see through this discussion that we are collectively looking to gather both qualitative metrics and stories, as well as some quantitative metrics. And so this first part really focuses, I would say, on the quantitative metrics. And we started in this pre-meeting with the co-liaisons to just brainstorm what might be some of the quantitative metrics that we can gather to understand the current state of work-based learning in Connecticut that we can use for the discovery meeting on the 25th. But also recognize we will probably continue to gather that data, following the discovery meeting. And we're fully cognizant of the fact that in some cases, the data won't currently exist or won't currently exist connected to other important data sets. And that might be part of our solution recommendation. So with that said, from a quantitative data perspective, you can just see we've got a couple of ideas here, but wanted to just hear from the group again as a first couple minutes chat. If you have any other thoughts about possible quantitative metrics, and or do you have visibility into where we can gather them? So I will just be quiet, let you read the list, and just popcorn around with any ideas or thoughts that you have.
When you put student outcomes, obviously student participation is easy, right? How many kids participated in any of them, right? What are you looking for what are you thinking about in terms of a metric on that?
Well, I think there's a qualitative metric about readiness. I think that's one of the harder outcomes to define. I think the other ones are more like process or counting or numbers. But I'll actually defer to the broader group who probably has a better sense of the space than I do. Or this might be part of our solution, defining.
I mean, I could throw a few ideas out there, and Shannon has a lot of expertise in there. So Shannon, if you want to chime in, and Dante, you probably too, but things we could look at are things like completion rates for an internship, apprenticeship, some type of skills assessment, like establishing their competencies, if there's post-secondary enrollment or job placement. Those are the types of things that we could potentially look at in terms of outcomes.
Credentialing.
Yeah, I was going to say credentialing.
Yep.
I think that it would be important to come up with a set of skills that we think that the students participating in every one of the work-based experiences that you listed before should be acquiring. And because otherwise, if we talk about student outcomes that are specific by type of work-based learning opportunity, it will be more difficult. I think that if you can come up with a generic set of skills, and the research is out there that tells you what to expect or what is a good student outcome metric.
To follow up on that point, would it then be a more generic set of workforce readiness skills than industry-specific skill attainment, correct?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. I've at some point I'd like to share with this group a new VR tool that we've added called Train All People that actually does a whole workforce readiness assessment that we can give it the questions and have the students actually do it. It's all AI driven. You don't type, you just talk to it. And it's pretty neat. And so that's something that we could consider using to score, kind of look at the outcomes based on the questions the students would be asked about work readiness skills, just as a way to kind of get some information.
Please share, Kathy. We'll put it in our scan, our landscape for sure.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Nicole here, sorry, I can't raise my hand. I see kind of two very distinct swim lanes here. One is just at the 8th, 9th, 10th grade, maybe even earlier, to someone's point earlier, making the students aware of the companies that exist in their local area. They don't even know we exist. Giving them the tour, letting their parents know we exist. And then I see the second swim lane, what you're all talking about, which is what do the businesses need?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm working with Chris Rivers and Miguel. I'm putting together kind of a business roundtable. I feel right now this is going to be great work we're going to do, but if we don't listen to what the businesses need, we need more business representation, because we don't want the students coming out with skills that don't align to where the businesses are and where we're going. So, if we could get them in to show them who we are, then they have a picture of who we are, and then we can educate them for what the businesses need. That's the vision I have. And we're trying to put together a roundtable over this early summer at Yale University with about 18 local businesses. So Alicia, you may be on copy of that. I'm not sure.
Yep, you're aware.
Okay. So those are my thoughts. I think you have to do both. You have to make them aware of us, and then you have to skill them up for what we need, not for what the schools think we need.
100%. I kind of describe it, Nicole, as the companies as providers of content and information, and then like recipients of the student product. So that's one way I think about it.
Yeah. Good.
Great. So this is exactly what we wanted, just a first few minutes to start to think about the quantitative metrics, the possibilities. Obviously, we will refine this going forward. Some of these data points or data sets will be readily available, and we'll pull them into our landscape scan for the discovery meeting. And then some of them, again, will probably take a little bit longer maybe to gather, or some might not exist, and we have to include the sort of as a solution, the ability to gather and use the data to assess outcomes. So thank you for that, for engaging in the conversation.
Jen, before we go on, I'm not sure if you can see both Dante and Shannon have their hands raised.
I cannot. So thank you for the shout out. So you said Dante first, and D comes before S. So Dante, go ahead, please.
Thanks. So 3 kind of quick points.
Mm-hmm.
The outcomes we were talking about, like what are outcomes to be. As far as registered apprenticeship programs, I just want to caution that completion is a very, very, very difficult statistic to reliably get, because they need to register, but they do not need to report out. There's no requirement for them to report out. And we've looked at that a variety of times for a lot of reasons we can talk about. That's very hard to get. It's not reliable. Versus the certified pre-apprenticeship programs, which is certainly easier because it involves, a school at that point in time, doing the pre-apprenticeship, which is, just a certified work-based learning program. That's 1. 2, I just found out recently that Connecticut, for our WIOA youth programming, is the highest credential rate in the nation at 79.4%. So kudos to Kathy and the rest of our workforce development boards who are doing that work. And then the last thing is that I think, Nicole, you were mentioning what businesses need. We have to find out what they need. I just want to point out that when you've got when you've got a registered apprenticeship program, one of the reasons that's really considered kind of the gold standard of training by many folks is because first, you don't have a program without an employer, but second, the employer is involved actively in developing the curriculum based on, what capabilities and things are needed. And so there is in that model a really one huge benefit is that the employer is saying what they need, and the registered apprenticeship program is customized to that. So I'll just let that go.
Yeah, that's great, Dante. I'm not familiar enough with what those statistics are. In my just small sliver of understanding of this is some businesses that have tried to use those, the wages don't align on an equity issue, on an equity plane with other employees, so they can't use the apprentice program. So out of 4,000 manufacturers, how many are in that program? So what kind of cross section do we have of business?
Yeah, you and I
needs?
should talk offline because that statement is something that I think we need to clarify.
Okay. All right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah, I think that's the data that would be helpful for this committee, because out of 3,000 or 4,000 manufacturers, if we have, 500 enrolled, we probably have a really good set of data, versus we only have, Electric Boat or Pratt or, whoever. So that would be good data to see.
And that's a good point, Nicole, that part of the challenge and the opportunity with the commission is like taking the great bright spots, the pockets of excellence, the things that are working well, and figuring out how to scale them and sustain them at scale, right? So it's not a product challenge necessarily, but it's a scaling.
Sure.
So that
Good.
certainly is part of our mandate as well. Shannon, I missed you earlier.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I would say I really like the idea of the swim lanes, and I do think that we'll have to kind of get to a place where we agree and maybe don't get to everything around this student focused lens versus an employer focused lens, and not that they can't be one and the same, but there's going to be places where they're not. And I think just trying to get a bit of a handle on that, so we're not trying to boil the ocean. A lot of how we think about it oftentimes is the student centered, like outcomes related not only to participation but also access and equity, like which kids even have access to any of these programs, and how much are they accessing them, and then the participation and outputs will follow. But that it can, and that's enriching in and of itself. And we also look at student outcomes from a academic and traditional school experience way, which is that students participating in these kinds of programs have outsized improvement in terms of grades, attendance, standardized test results, and graduation rates just from the mere experience of participating in work-based learning. So it's just good practice no matter what, but that doesn't mean that much to an employer if it doesn't convert into employment in certain industries, high demand, high growth industries, and then that they show up for employment opportunities and are prepared, and then there's retention in those opportunities. So there's sort of this, like, we're trying to cover a lot of ground here. And I would love to kind of create some more structure around that and agree as a commission with what we're going to focus on and what we're not going to focus on. Or if we are going to try to do it all, how do we do that? And then where is this data all getting collected? Because the biggest challenge we have is, if you really want to see the long-term outcomes of these efforts and know whether a student had the intended impact of that experience into employment opportunities, that's not being tracked consistently in any way, shape, or form. So just a lot, when the data piece is the holy grail, and if we can figure that out, it would be amazing.
100%. And I apologize. I just dropped off, but I think I got most of your input, Shannon. And certainly, thank goodness this is being recorded. Kathy, your hand is up.
Yeah, so I had two. One is a question, one is a comment. As it relates the data, is it more prudent to understand what data is available and then figure it out from there? Because we can want everything, but there's not going to be a lot of data. And as we've learned in this state for the 25 years I've been in this job, trying to get a separate data system together, I got a better chance of seeing God. So I think we need to really be intentional about, okay, what data can we have? And from what we can have, what do we want? Instead of what do we want and how do we get it? I think it might be a more fruitful conversation. The other thing I just wanted to ask, and Nicole, you piqued my interest. You made mention that you were working with Chris and Miguel to put together a business roundtable. What is that looking like, and what is that?
Nicole, why don't you explain that, and then I can connect it to the broader stakeholder engagement, because that's actually the next topic, just so that folks can see how they're sort of connected together, if that's okay. So I'll let you respond, Nicole, but I wanted to give the context that there's a broader approach as well.
Yeah, sure. And I'm trying to connect dots here because I know we have to work so quick. So when we left that first meeting, my immediate response was, hey, we need business at the table. We don't want the educators telling us what the businesses need. We need the businesses telling the education system what they need. We've got distinct challenges between, different parts of the state. So I just spoke with Miguel very briefly. He put me in touch with Chris Rivers, and then Chris DiBattima and Chris Rivers and I kind of put together an initial list to host at Yale, kind of mid-July. And then I think there's going to be 3 or 4 for businesses to come together to talk about what do they need. And we tried to do this with the RSP 3.5 years ago and put whole curriculums together with the facilitators that were hired, and it just didn't go anywhere, unfortunately. I don't think the system was ready for it. So there's some framework there already, but that's essentially what we're going to try to do, is hear from the businesses. And I think you're doing this with parents as well, Alicia. You're doing it on different stakeholders.
Yep. So I can pick that up from here. So we are absolutely, as the SIP team, across all of the constituent groups, we do have a broad stakeholder outreach approach, and we truly understand the importance of getting the business voice. So in addition to having several commission members who represent businesses, which we will, even though they're not on our work-based learning committee, we will absolutely reach out, get input along the way, and cross-pollinate. We do have a broad stakeholder outreach plan, and the business community is, in fact, one of the key stakeholder or key constituent groups that we will engage via one-on-one discussions. As Nicole mentioned, she is working on this roundtable approach. We met, for example, with the RSP group earlier today. So what we have here, there's 2 pages really. The first page is really focused on getting the business input. And we structured this. And again, this is sort of complementary, or it's the yin and the yang, I would say, with what Nicole just described, that she's specifically working on with Miguel and Chris, and Chris and Chris. But this will all come together so that the output is a consolidated view. But what we wanted to hear from you here is, you can see we have this sort of graph that is slightly filled out, where we recognize we really want to hear from small, medium, and large employers, because the challenges, the realities are very different. So the solutions, while some may be consistent across all, some may be very different depending on the size of the business and location and things like that. So with that said, and I just recognize we're getting close to time, we'll let you take a look at this. Obviously, you have this deck already. And we want to hear from you. Are there people that you know, like Dante brought us David at Schaefer Beacon Manufacturing when we first had our co-liaison meeting? We want to get your input as to who are the great business voices that we can talk to across these different segments. So questions, comments, or reactions, we thought we would have a little bit of time to popcorn around, but just looking at the clock here, we will leave this as a bit of homework for the committee, if that's okay. But any questions, comments, or reactions about this?
So again, and Nicole, thank you for reaching out there. But again, I know you've talked about the work that you do for work-based learning. I think when we're doing that, do we not want to be intentional about making sure that employers that have done this are sharing what was right, what was wrong, what could be better, and then using that as the link to reach out to employers that haven't done it, and have it be a peer-to-peer conversation across industry sector employers to bring more people to the table?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's the right on approach. Yeah.
So Jen, you asked, but I know you can't see my hand. So I just want to let you know that I do have, actually, I've got my apprenticeship director as well as my WIOA admin director, Todd and Erica, putting together, they did some outreach to employers, and I'm working on that. So when you're asking, let you know, it sounds like things are going really quickly. Let you know by when.
As soon as possible, Dante,
Okay.
because if possible, we will include this into the discovery content.
Okay.
But again,
Okay.
if not, if it's a little bit after, that's okay too. Like we're not going
Okay.
to end input on current state by June 25th.
I've got mine together. I'm going to piece together some emails and make it readable.
Beautiful. Much
And we
appreciated.
also know a lot of that input will be very valuable when we're coming up with, our recommendations. So the input will be, very important now and later. So don't let our June 25th date stop you from like continuing to think about it and provide us names and connections to people, because we really need that through the whole process.
Have you made a decision about mine and Kathy's request to add a couple employers that do work-based learning to this subcommittee?
So we've been told that the actual official formal committees are only commission members, but everyone can join. And if anyone wants to join, we can all agree that they can share their thoughts and opinions during our meeting. We can decide collectively to do that. We are also going to be very intentional about ensuring that we have input along the way, and maybe even have a subset of employers who want to kind of go through the whole process with us, not just a one-time input, but like start with us at the beginning and take us through the end. So we can come up with some ideas around how we're going to ensure that we get that input.
I'm sorry, I was trying to follow that, Alicia. So add subcommittee members, yes or no?
No, we're not. It's not our decision. It was a decision that was kind of made by the commission oversight, that like official committee members, because we take the roll call and everything, those are commission members, but everyone can, it's a public meeting and everyone can participate. And I just wanted to, what I was trying to say was to assure you that we're going to get their input throughout the process. And anyone who wants to be very engaged can be very engaged. We'll make sure there's outlets for that.
Okay.
And then I'll quickly just turn to, again, this is the same sort of story, our broad stakeholder input that we want to get from various constituent groups. We separated out the business voice first, just to reinforce how important that is. And then this is just, again, a scan of all of the folks that we will be reaching out to either on the commission or not, to provide us with insight and input. And again, our ask for you as homework is to review this and make any suggestions that you have. This is just, it should say draft for review. Draft is a starting point, so that we have a full collective constituent view. And I think I'm going to turn it over now back to Dante to take us home for the end of the meeting.
So we decided that we're going to have 2 more committee meetings before the June 25th larger commission meeting. The reason for that is we think that the more we can do, the better, but we recognize that it, may or may not be possible. So please do join if you can, if time allows. We really would love to have that. And I think at this point we've started our way on to sharing our thoughts and opinions. And if you've got more that you'd like to add and didn't have a chance today about metrics or stakeholders or that kind of thing, please make sure that you're getting that to Jen and Alicia. And we will, we're pretty excited to keep this moving and keep it going. So thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
And just
Bye,
in terms
folks.
of scheduling future meetings, we sent out a doodle poll. So if everyone has a chance to log in and just let us know their availability, there were some options for the coming weeks. We'll get the next meeting scheduled as soon as possible.
Oh, hi, Alicia. Thanks. I think I may have missed that because I think I only doodled for this one.
Yeah, so yesterday I sent out the PowerPoint and I had a link to the doodle poll. I can resend it if that would be helpful.
Okay, no, I'll look for the PowerPoint. That's okay. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for
Thanks.
joining. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.